January 12th, 2025. Today's reading is Genesis 32, 33, 34, and 35. We get Jacob going back to meet up with Esau and how Jacob was crafty and how he was going to meet with Esau, and sent forth and divided his people up so they'd be protected, and then coached them all and was very careful and planned all this out, and then sent them ahead to Esau and sent them forth and had it all spread out. And then we see how he puts himself alone at the very, after he gets it all prepared, and he makes a great prayer. And in his prayer to God, he acknowledges his unworthiness, and God's faithfulness and love and his blessing that's been upon him, and he acknowledges all that, and then he sets himself alone. And I read today, I had to read some commentary on this. This is something I've how does this make sense, right? How does this even make sense that a man could wrestle with God and win? But that's what we get. We get Jacob alone, and we look at the scene, we look around, and we see that he did the prep work to put himself alone. He did the prep work to accept the fate that he was going to have. He put the river between him and Esau, so there was no real escape. There was humility in what he did and how he did it. And he put himself last, and he put himself alone. Comments, I said probably to put more time into prayer. Other comments, he needed sleep, but instead he wrestled with God. A man came and wrestled with him until dawn to break. That's a long time. It's been a long time since I wrestled, but it takes a lot of work. It's not an easy thing to do, and it wrestled till dawn. Quite a deal to wrestle. And how does a man win against God, the Almighty, the powerful, the creator of the world, the heavens and everything, the creator of us? He knows us. He made us. He made himself a man. This would be Jesus, God incarnate in man. And we see this, and he wrestles with us. He wrestles with him there. And he doesn't give up. He holds on. And Jacob's pretty special. He's pretty wise and cunning and crafty, but he also acknowledges God. And he acknowledges and he knows what God promised him. And he stands on that. And this is a story that's very famous and well known. Jacob wrestles with God and then becomes Israel after that. He becomes something different through this. Again, that's a hard thing to quite get your head wrapped around, is why Jacob wrestled with God and won. And I think it's something we all ought to do, is to wrestle with God and ask those questions: why, where, how, and what, but totally realize that we rely on him. I will continue to wrestle with that thought, because Jacob changed his name, or God changed his name to Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. And that's what Jacob did. He won against Laban. He won against Esau. He's about to win again with Esau. There's no fight there. But he had to wonder. There was a lot of question. Okay, he was sent away. The last thing he heard about Esau was that he was going to kill him. And he was going to hear back from his mother that things were already okay, that he'd forgotten about what he was going to do, or he'd moved past it, forgiven. And he hadn't heard from Rebecca. He hadn't heard from his mother to come back. It'd been 20 years. So he had to wonder. That had to be in his mind as well. And then we see, so that's something. Just think on it, wrestle. Keep that in your mind always. Wrestle with God. Wrestle with him. Wrestle with his words. Wrestle with what he says, what he tells us in his word. And use his word to understand. Use his word to plead with him as well. When we see Jacob and Esau making peace, that came across real well. That went well. It was a relief to see your friendly smile. That was great. And then we see Oh, and then after that whole ordeal, I didn't even get into this, but his daughter, Jacob's daughter Dinah, was seized and raped, and then we get the deception of Jacob's sons, and two of them went through the camp of Shechem, or what camp was that? I didn't pay attention. It's the Shechem was the prince that raped Dinah and then tried to marry her, and they tricked him by getting him to be circumcised, and then while they were still tender from circumcision, went through and killed them. Two of them. It took two of them to kill the whole town, all the men there. And then they went through. Jacob didn't like that. We know that. But then he kind of, after that, he said, okay, it's time to clean house, guys. Let's go and get rid of all the pagan stuff. We worship the one true God, and that's it. This is it. We're worshiping him. We're going to Bethel, where God answered his prayers and things happened there. Get rid of all that stuff. That doesn't belong to us. We worship the one true God. And so he does that, and they move there. And God came to him. And this is a name that God told him. God said that his name is El Shaddai, God Almighty. And he tells him to be fruitful. And again, that blessing, that promise that you're going to do this. This is going to work. So, and then we get the death of Rachel, and finally the birth of his 12th son, Benjamin, for the tribe of Benjamin, the 12 tribes. And then we have this other little weird thing about his eldest son having sex with his concubine, or Rachel's her maid at the time. It's just a little blurb in there. Why is it there? What does that do for us? What does it make us think? Even the story of Shechem there. It's a little thing in there. There's something to be learned there. There's something to be thought of there. I didn't get enough out of that to even share that, but I think I'll probably continue reading on that yet. But some cool stuff happened. Keep your mind on and keep humble and stay and rely on God, because God has promises for us and he will complete those promises. We might wrestle with him along the way, but he will deliver as he promises.